Hey everyone, welcome to 3 Beers Deep for July 27th, 2015. This is coming a little bit later in the day because I did a Spoon with Scoops last week, did some other videos, been doing a lot of Rocket League streams in the morning, and I had chopped out all that stuff, had it ready to go, and then I went to a cabin in the woods, and there was no internet connection, and I got really behind and all that stuff, so just things have been going on. But this is 3 Beers Deep, in which you send questions in, I answer them, never necessarily satisfactorily, I answer them. That's the only guarantee I give, is that you will get answers, and by answers, you know, I guess it's kind of like Lost. You got your answer, you don't have to be happy with it. So anyway, let's get to your questions, which you can submit in the future at patrickklubik.tumblr.com. I try and answer questions on a daily basis over there, or at least kind of semi-daily, and then I pluck from there and answer them in video form and put them out in a podcast form in something called inventory management on iTunes. So let's get to what you folks have sent in today. Pull up my note app, which has all that stuff there as I stall for time. Nathan from the internet says, Spelunky update. Honestly, I wasn't really enjoying the playing game. I was just frustrated. I could get to the jungle fairly regularly, but wasn't feeling it. Then I had this amazing run, found the cape in a crate, and then I brought a shotgun into 1-4. I got the Matic. I had 6 health to enter the jungle. I was running back to my shotgun, tried to drop the Matic, broke a block by accident, and got crushed. All I could do was laugh, and the game clicked with me onwards. I feel like you kind of had or were on the verge of the run that I think makes Spelunky click for a lot of people, or games that are punishingly difficult as a way of instructing you on how to learn from them, how to play them, which is you have something magical happen. You have either a serendipitous set of events, or everything just kind of comes together, and you know defeat a boss or get through a level or get something happens in which you experience what people have been telling you about. And I feel like this happens a lot with games that have high barriers to entry. You know, I think Spelunky is a game. Well, Spelunky is not a hard game to get to play, right? Like the basic mechanics of running, jumping, attacking, throwing bombs, climbing things, like that stuff's not tough, but the game is extremely punishing, right? And I think Dark Souls falls into this in a similar way, Crypt of the Necrodancer, so these roguelike or roguelites that function or pull from some old, very punishing genres. But when you read about them, when you hear about them, when you watch them, you can only grasp so much about it. And for some people, being at arm's length is enough. But if you're trying to get into it, that can be really frustrating when it's like you can see why people love it, but you can't see it for yourself. Like you don't have that same excitement. And so I can't remember the moment it happened in Spelunky for me. I feel like I never quite had it the first time I played Spelunky, and then it happened when I decided to jump into it the second time last year. With Dark Souls, it was very similar. I played up and through the first major boss and was like, oh, okay, I guess I get it, but I didn't get it. And that stuff happened later. I remember in Dark Souls, it happened when I rang the first bell, when I defeated the 2 gargoyles. Like that was when Dark Souls went from to like that was the moment the game became something more, and I understood why people were so hyped for it, and it's why I've been so entrenched in those games ever since. It was that moment. That was the moment it clicked. So hopefully that continues to happen to you, Nathan from the internet. And I'd be curious to have people weigh in. What were the moments where games that you didn't quite get but wanted to, where did they finally go like that? I'd be curious to hear how that happened for other people. Asinines? Don't know if you have any insiders at Valve. I don't. But any idea to the legitimacy of that rumor from The Know, which is a popular YouTube channel, which is a spinoff of Rooster Teeth, I believe. They were responsible for that Dark Souls 3 leak and responsible for perpetuating a rumor about PT and Microsoft buying exclusivity for a crazy amount of money that never was going to happen. It was bunk from day one. Anyway, that's who The Know is. About Valve canceling Half-Life 3 for financial reasons, fear of criticism. I did watch a little bit of that video. I'll put a link to it below in the description if you want to check it out yourself. But essentially what they were arguing was that they'd heard from an anonymous insider that at Valve that there was a sort of a script complete for Half-Life 3, but they only had a small team working on it, and there really was no intention of releasing Half-Life 3 at any point. And, Valve has kind of tiptoed around the idea of Half-Life 3 for a number of years now. It wouldn't surprise me if there is just a small team that is prototyping on Half-Life 3 or whatever that's going to be called, if it ever happens, because Valve is in this advantageous position that they don't have to do anything they don't want to. The projects they pursue, the games they make or don't make, the things they commit their time to are the things they want to continue to do. Now, granted, there have been sort of rumors and reports that have come out of the studio over the years that sort of their flat structure with no real bosses and not a whole lot of control of project management could result in projects that otherwise might have been made at other companies never happening at Valve. But I think the argument you might get from some people at Valve is that, well, the way that you get the things that are great out of Valve are because that sort of momentum builds and things come out of the company that way. I am in the camp that I desperately want Half-Life 3. I want resolution to that story. I want resolution to that world. I want to happily revisit what is essentially just a Half-Life expansion. I don't need a game that's going to change the world. And I sometimes feel like the weight of expectations on Half-Life 3 are that it has to be this revolutionary game. That if it was just another Half-Life, it wouldn't be enough. But I think that might be enough for me. But I say that because then I'm allowed to flip the script and act differently when it comes out, and maybe it's disappointing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they look at it as sort of a Duke Nukem Forever scenario in which they set themselves up for something that would be extremely difficult to capitalize on in the future. But I'd rather live in a world where Half-Life 3 exists than doesn't exist. I still think at some point they address it. I think at some point a Half-Life 3 or something like that does come out of Valve. Maybe it just happens a long time from now. But sort of feels like, I don't know, I want to play that game, man. I'm with you. I want to play Half-Life 3. Pop Secret. Patrick, thank you for always rising above whatever negativity gets thrown your way and for being an awesome dude. Keep trucking, Patrick. You're doing a great job. That's an incredibly nice thing to say. It has not been the easiest last week and a half given the other things that have been happening around Gawker Media, things that were out of my control, things that I wildly disapproved of, things that I hope people know I would never, ever sign off on in any way, shape, or form, and that it disgusted me that the paycheck that I get every week in some way contributes to that. But the idea that while something horrible happened at your company that you had nothing to do with means that you should immediately pack up your job, move on, go do something else. I don't think people quite realize what you're asking of someone when you bring up things like that. I'm not to say that what happened at Gawker didn't give me pause, doesn't make me consider what might happen in the future, but that's the future. I'm not just going to wake up and go, yes, I'm going to abandon my livelihood. Yes, I'm going to put the brakes on being able to, pay my rent and support the people around me and the ambitions I have for the future because someone screwed something up that I had nothing to do with. So while I get it and it's easy to throw that stuff around and demand that people do what is quote-unquote the right thing, life's a little more complicated than that. So I guess I say that to express my gratitude and thanks for people for being understanding of me being in a complicated position in terms of what I can and can't do and what the restraints are and what I can and can't do when that rubs up against my ethics, my values, but also I need to live. I need to put food on the table. I need to support the things that are important to me in my life. And that makes this idea of just waking up and quitting your job just because, that was terrible, not the easiest thing to consider. So to Pop Secret and others, I appreciate your understanding, your support. But do know it did have a profound effect on how I feel about the future. I don't really have anything to share other than that, and that's not even a tease. That's just me saying, how could it not? 19 Imperial 88 says, Dear Patrick, every couple of months I watch the whole endurance run of Chrono Trigger that you did with Ryan Davis. Rest in peace. Your guys' magic together was incredible. I have a couple of questions. How was it like working with Ryan? Well, I guess I'll answer these individually. One, it was always a treat. I always sat next to him in sort of our little setup. Ryan and I had a lot in common. He was a big fan of horror films and nerdy stuff. Not to say that two guys or a bunch of guys writing for a video game website isn't inherently nerdy, but our other nerd geek interests aligned very much. He was always the person I had so much fun talking to. I always tried to convince him to go out and get a drink because I knew I was always going to get a great story out of it. I knew he was always he had so much insight to share. He was so sympathetic and passionate and empathetic, and he was the one when I came to Giant Bomb that just, not to say that everyone didn't like embrace me wholeheartedly, but he took me under his wing. He said, "This is your first quick look. Come play on this. You want to do this endurance run? I want to play Chrono Trigger. Come do that with me. You want to come be on this live show? Come do that with me. You want to be part of the podcast on a regular basis instead of just a guest every once in a while? I want you to do that." And I remember at the end of the first year, at the end of our Game of the Year stuff, I'll always treasure him specifically pointing out that, part of the reasons he enjoyed that year at Giant Bomb specifically was because I had become a part of it. And Ryan was a dear friend who I continue to miss to this day. And that's kind of what was it like to work with him. 2, did you like the endurance run you did with Ryan? It was difficult. It was kind of trial by fire. I mostly agreed to the endurance run because I wanted to spend time with Ryan because he was a great guy. And then also I wanted to experience one of the most interesting things that Giant Bomb as a group has done, continues to do. Although I guess there hasn't been an endurance run in a while. Although there have been like stealth endurance runs. There's been a bunch of stealth endurance runs, Bioforge, Metal Gear Scanlan, and things like that. And so I really did enjoy doing it. But I also found it difficult because there's a lot of text on the screen, so you're trying to read it. And then you're trying to read it, and you don't want to voice it for the audience. So, like, the pauses in the game by being an RPG that was slower, I found difficulty with, especially because it coincided with me just adjusting to doing a lot of video full time. So that was the big roadblock for me, and people tend to point that out a lot. I know it is not everyone's favorite endurance run. That's okay. I'm glad you enjoyed it, 19 Imperial 88, because I had a lot of fun doing it. 4 was your least favorite moment. I think I explained kind of that there. Did you ever watch back the endurance run yourself? No. I watch very little of what I do, say, and write after the fact. I think this is a sentiment you would hear from a lot of creative folks, that the moment you finish something you are working on, you hate it and want to move on to the next thing because hopefully you can do it better. Rise of the Fish. Quick question for you, Scoops. Shoot. Do you think games can have too much content? I've been trying to get through The Witcher 3 with my partner for about 2 months now, and found it difficult to keep track of the game's many quest lines. I agree with critics hailing the game's story and writing, but I can't help but wonder how good a story can be if it takes over 100 hours to consume all of it. I'm sure you also felt this way about Alien Isolation. Was wondering about your broader take. Well, I think the context here really matters, and I think we cannot. This is a case-by-case basis. So Dragon Age Inquisition, a game that I felt had quote-unquote too much content. But I think that doesn't say the whole story, right? Like when I wrote a piece for Kotaku about how I thought Dragon Age Inquisition was wasting my time, it was to say they built these big, beautiful, sprawling worlds and filled it with a bunch of boring stuff to do. It wasn't enjoyable to go on those side quests. I didn't learn a whole lot. And I contrast that with The Witcher 3, in which I couldn't stop doing the side quests. And it wasn't because the actual mechanics, the moment-to-moment gameplay was unique or different or interesting. It was because it was memorable story arcs, character setups, payoffs. There was so much happening that was so interesting to experience, and a lot of that had to do with the writing. And so that's not an easily replicable thing, right? It's not a mechanic that you copy. It's just really damn good writing that I had an enormous amount of fun engaging with. And so what often happens with these big sprawling RPGs is that I explore a bunch of the side content and at some point go, yep, I'm really tiring of this. I want to move on to the next game. I'm just going to start mainlining the storyline, get to the ending, close the book on that, move on with my life. Whereas with The Witcher 3, I had to drag myself away from the side content and start doing more of the main storyline because there was no way I was going to finish the game. I'd spent 60 to 80 hours, and I could have spent another 60 hours looking into things that now when I look up some of the quests that I missed, I'm bummed that I missed out on that stuff because there was great stuff hidden in there. So I think it's too simplistic to say that games can have too much content or can be too sprawling or can be too big. It's about what you do in those worlds that justifies whether that's content or quests or however you want to sort of give a term to that is worth experiencing. And so for me, I guess the most direct comparisons are Dragon Age Inquisition wasn't worth experiencing a lot of that stuff. Witcher 3 was worth experiencing a lot of that stuff. And I think that's kind of the differentiator between the two. Last question coming up. King of Brave says, I was listening to an old Bombcast from 2011, and someone brought up eating pie with a slice of cheese on it. You said basically, I don't have to experience it to know I don't want it. I feel like you've become more open-minded since then. You should definitely film yourself eating some pie with cheese on it, for your video game YouTube channel. I still don't want to eat pie with cheese on it. I'm not a huge pie person. I'm a big cheese person. And cheese on pie just... If someone wants to make a recommendation, what pie cheese combination do you think I should check out if I want to try and make my way past this pie cheese barrier that I seem to have run up against? But I do appreciate your other sentiment, which is something that I've worked really, really hard on, which is trying to play games that are outside of my normal comfort zone. It's opened me up to all sorts of games and experiences that I never would have had otherwise. And I've always encouraged other people to do the same. And if there's something that I've repeated way too many times, ad nauseum, on podcasts, on this channel, anywhere I go, it's do that. Try and look at a game or a series or a genre that you thought, well, that's not for me because of X, Y, and Z. Give it another try. Sometimes you might be surprised that your frame of mind can change, and that your biases can sometimes mislead you from being able to enjoy things that you might actually get a lot out of. Not to say there aren't things you don't like, right? I think there are absolutely times when you just don't like a thing or a genre or a series. So it's not to suggest that you should like everything and everything is awesome. Everything is awesome is relative because it's awesome to other people, maybe not to you. But I have found time and time again things that I have written off, especially when you use the phrase, I don't need to experience them to know I won't like them. That is when maybe you should start questioning why you haven't tried that again, or tried it from a new perspective, or tried to have an open mind when it comes to it. So that does it for 3 Beers Deep for this week. You can submit future questions to patrickklubbeck.tumblr.com. Every week, I also have a, I think, spectacular podcast called Match 3, where I'm joined by Geeta Jackson and Sam Phillips, that we try and experience and talk about games from a broader cultural perspective that is still talking kind of about the week-to-week beats, but we try and pull back and not get so obsessed with the same sort of minutia that you hear on a lot of other video game podcasts. We're deliberately trying to do something different, so please give us feedback on that as well. You can find that at iTunes under Match 3. You can listen to the audio version of this Q&A if you watch this on YouTube by going to iTunes and listening to Inventory Management there. You can also go to a website, inventorymanagement.simplecast.fm, and you can get the episodes to download or stream. So please leave your comments below. I will see you, a lot of you, the rest of this week as we continue to play Rocket League, because that's all I seem to do these days. See you next week.